Well, good evening, everybody. We wanted to make sure our community heard an update on how labor bargaining is going with the Portland Association of Teachers. Our team is here again for the day, trying to work through those details. I'm joined here today by members of the board as well of the PPS bargaining team. We had a constructive exchange of full proposals this morning. I think with some shared understanding of resources we have available, the conversation turning to how do we address all those issues that are important to our educators while maintaining our fiscal constraints. I think both sides are trying to work towards a compromise on how to address each of those issues. The Portland Public Schools has presented its potential solution and remedies in those areas. We could talk about those things that are important to our educators, like planning and preparation time, some strategies for driving down class sizes overall. Of course, compensation is still an issue to discuss more clearly. So we're working through the details. I'm encouraged by this exchange of full packages. We're working towards hopefully someplace in the middle that will result in a settlement. I want to remain hopeful that that's something maybe that could happen this evening, but I don't want to get ahead of the situation. It's a fluid and constructive conversation right now, and we want to keep it that way. I'm going to turn it over to our board chair for a comment as well.
Thank you. I'm a little bit more optimistic than our soup. I think we're going to have a deal done today and hopefully get our kids back in by Monday or Tuesday. I'm always optimistic. Just want to give you a little bit of details about the package that we presented today. Our package includes a little over $147 million investment that we offered to PAT today. When you talk about the compensation, a little bit over 21 and a half cumulative compensation COLA over the next 3 years, which does include their step that they usually get every year. There's been a significant amount of dollars put into this proposal. We tried to make sure that we looked at all the educators' needs and figure out a way that we can address some of it, even if we can't do all of it. We do know that this contract is not what they wanted, but we really feel that this is something that we can balance out the fiscal responsibility because the more we give, the more we have to cut. Right now, we're looking at almost over a 3-year period, $103 million of cuts, which will be over the spectrum of all departments at PPS. And so we're hoping that today this is a breakthrough to get us one step closer to getting our kids back in school. And I'll take any questions. And if I can't answer them, I will be deferring to Dr. Adams to make sure we get the correct response.
Of the two proposals that are on the table now, where's the widest gap and what particular issues are we dealing with?
Well, financially, we don't know yet. We're still waiting on the numbers from PAT for their cost of their proposal. And so we've only really just gave them ours at the cost of it at this point. So a little bit, not that much, maybe about 103 million in cuts. It's just going to be a broad spectrum. Administrative cuts, of course. Everybody's been talking about cut the fat, so we're going to look at that. We're actually going to really look at each line item and see what things that are really student focused and student direct focus versus non-student direct focus. And so we're going to be looking through our budget through those, and then it'll be a wide range of other cuts that happens.
So looking at the cost of living increases, the cumulative is 10.9% according to your one sheet. I think it was at 10.5 previously, is that correct? And what does that look like annually over the 3-year period?
I'm going to do that to Dr. I don't know if I had that. I don't think we had that information.
Sure. It's true that our proposal has continued to go up by an increment in the cost of living adjustment. Currently, it stands at 4.5 in the first year, plus 3 each of the subsequent years. That doesn't take into account an automatic salary step increase that our educators receive annually. That's equal to 3.4% also. So, when you combine all those together, you get a total percentage in compensation increase.
And that's nowhere near what the teachers are asking for, so what is your plea to them as far as cost of living?
We have a gap between the ask and what we think we can, at this moment, put on the table. Part of that depends on the remedies and the agreements we make in the other article areas. Those also have costs. When you want to drive down class size, that means you want to hire more educators. So I've been saying this from the beginning, compensation, class size, you have to manage those two dials, or you could put your school district in insolvency. We don't want to do that. Sure. We've also proposed stipends in addition to the salary schedule, a one-time stipend for our teachers. For our teachers on the upper end of the salary schedule, they're maxed out. They would get a 3% one-time, a 1.5% one-time stipend. For all other members on the salary schedule, they would see a 0.5% one-time stipend as well, just as another way to recognize the hard work of our educators.
As soon as we get it.
As far as school tomorrow, we're still expecting a call about 7 tonight?
Yeah, that's been consistent with what we've been doing, so it's been about 7, yeah.
I appreciate your optimism, but the hardship that many students have had to deal with being out of school for a long period of time, their parents as well, can you speak to that and the impact this may have on the community and also the trust issue?
Absolutely. We recognize this is a hardship for a lot of our community members, especially our kids. We understand that this is not a normal cause of a school year, and I think what's really going to have to happen is the healing after this gets done. The work that it's going to take to heal those relationships, to make sure additional supports for those kids coming back to school, and making sure that we are all hands on deck to embrace those kids and the families that are going through this hardship. So it's going to take a lot of that type of work to heal and to start regaining that trust again.
And I recognize some of those missed days could be absorbed theoretically, but at what point would you look to extend the school year, or what other remedies might be available?
So that's going to be a Dr. Adams question.
Michael, he did that. So we won't really be able to examine all the remedies for making up the missed student instructional time until we reach a deal, right? And so what those ideas looked like last week is slightly different than what they could look like this week coming up. And so we really can't commit to extending the school year or not until we know how long the teachers have been out, till they come back to work, and we have to agree. That's another part of the agreement that we'll have to reach with our educators.
I have a question. I think maybe for Director Brim Edwards. Obviously, there's been some confusion about the results of the state fiscal analyst's review of PBS's budget. I'm just wondering if you can clarify for us your understanding of the report.
So what we can talk about, we had a discussion with the union, the state's CFO for DAS, and also the PBS team, and they provided a chart, and the numbers on the chart showed that PBS's estimates for this year were the same as the state's estimates. So there was no 20 million, there wasn't 100 million of extra money. So I'm going to just talk about the chart, because that's how they asked us to describe it, which was, for this year, our numbers matched the state's numbers. For next year, there was a small incremental increase that was based on us getting new information just this week that allowed us to make some new estimates, and it was about $9 million, but nothing like 20 or 100 million that would allow us to close the gap and do what we'd obviously like to do if we could, if we financially could. Does that answer your question?
Anything else?
So we have confidence in our numbers, and we felt that having the state look at them gave really a nice independent look at the numbers. So we feel very confident in the numbers because they've been scrubbed by this, not only the state's CFO, but also the Department of Education's finance people who deal with the school finances all the time. So we feel confident in the numbers, and that's a question for obviously for PAT about their confidence. But if you look at the chart that they supplied, the numbers match.
And it's notable that the offers that were released today include cost estimates from PPS, but not PAT. Obviously, this is also more of a question for them, but can you tell us a little bit about, can you shed any light on why their estimates weren't costed out, and do you know, even ballpark, how much of a gap remains between the two sides, given that they made some concessions on class size and
So at the moment, we can't answer that. That'll be a question for PAT. And then, once we get that information, then we can be able to answer that
do
question.
you have a timeline?
As soon as we get it, you'll have it.
So I think that's part of the challenge. I mean, it's a good question. We want to arrive at some agreements, but if you don't have a sense of cost estimates, what fiscal implications could there be there? So, we're trying to pencil those out ourselves as well, so that we can arrive at some compromise points. So, hopefully, we'll start to arrive at some numbers for their side as well.
And in the note you guys sent out to families, you mentioned $10 million of cuts just from your offer alone for the upcoming school year. Can you be any more specific with us about what those cuts might look like?
So the $10 million to help start bridging the budget gap are from this current school year. So we're already taking a close look at administrative costs, discretionary spending, contracted services, et cetera. So there's a whole menu of possibilities for where those reductions can come from. Obviously, the central office can't absorb the $103 million budget gap that we need to close, but we're certainly going to be doing more than our proportional share, and that's sort of the second half of this conversation once we arrive at a tentative agreement.
What does the scheduling look like for the rest of the evening tonight, and then potentially if it continues on to next week, what does that schedule look like?
Well, we're here today, willing as always to go into the night, and then typically what happens is we work with the mediator, and based on their availability and their recommendation from talking to both sides, we'll make a plan going forward.
What is
We're
their
here.
availability as far as the
Oh,
meeting?
they told us that they're available at any time. At the moment, anytime with short notice is what they've told us. So anytime we're ready to pass proposals or have conversations, either side is able to call into mediation. We're, as we have said since the beginning, we're willing and able to be here every day that we need to get our kids back in school.
And is there any word from Governor Kotek today about her potential intervention into this situation?
We're keeping her apprised of the developments and have shared our proposal with her. And if she can be helpful, she told us if she could be helpful, she would be. So, as I say, we just had the exchange proposal. We've shared ours with her, and if she can help us get kids back in school, we'd obviously really welcome her support and intervention.